Welcome, budding young historians. The topic of this presentation is oral history. I will talk a little about the roots of oral history in the oral tradition of storytelling, the different types of stories, and the use of oral history as a source by historians. I will also give you some pointers on doing your own oral history project. I want to start out by saying that all of us have stories to tell. I interview people as part of my job, and I often hear people say that they have no good stories to share with me, but they're always wrong. In talking with people, interesting stories always come up. Now, there are different kinds of stories. Some are true and some are made up. True stories told aloud are sometimes called oral histories. So what is oral history? Before people had television, computers, or even books, they used to sit in groups and tell stories. In some cultures, this oral tradition was a way of passing down stories and information from generation to generation. Sometimes these stories change over time and become folktales, legends, or myths. These types of stories might be used to entertain, but they are often used to teach a lesson. Some cultures even have professional storytellers. These are people who have good memories, strong voices, and are skilled in the art of performance. Legends or tall tales are stories rooted in truth that have grown and become exaggerated over time. Here at the Wayside Inn, we have stories of Jerusha Howe, who lived in what is today Longfellow's Wayside Inn over 200 years ago, and the sadness she felt because of a long-lost love. Jerusha Howe was a real person, but there is little evidence of a lost love. Next week, I will post a read-aloud story from an old magazine about Jerusha on the TWIF blog, along with an explanation on how we know the stories stretch the truth. But some stories are true and are about events from the past told by people who lived through them. These stories are oral histories, and historians like to record and study them. Historians use oral history to help them reconstruct the events of the past. Sometimes they will use oral histories along with other primary sources. I will explain what primary sources are in another TWIF presentation to piece together what happened in the past. Other times they might use oral history as the only available source to help them uncover history about lesser known events. You don't need a special degree to be a historian. We can all be historians. During this time of being out of school and with our families more, it is the perfect time to be an oral historian. You can record stories from your family members now to preserve them for future generations. I suggest taking a little time to sit down with the older members of your family for an interview. I guarantee you they have some interesting stories to share, and by recording the interviews, you can share these stories with others in your family and maybe even preserve them for future generations. I have worked on several oral history projects and have learned a few tips and tricks I'd like to share with you. Before you begin, talk to the person you want to interview before you actually record the interview. Say a little about what you want to do and why you want to do it. For example, if I wanted to interview my 73-year-old mother, I might say, "Mom, I want to learn more about your childhood. Do you mind if I interview you and record what you say?" You also want to test out all your equipment before you do the interview. Decide if you want an audio or video recording, or if you need to use something like Zoom to record at a distance. You don't really need a lot of special equipment. Most phones have apps that allow you to record. It is also a good idea to ask another family member to help so you have another set of hands. You'll also want to write down a few questions or prompts for the interview beforehand. Come up with a few fun questions that are open-ended, meaning avoid yes/no questions. Here are some examples of good questions or prompts. Was there ever a time when you were out of school for a long time like we are now? Share a memory from when you were my age. Tell me about a memorable event that happened in the country or world from when you were a kid. What is your best memory of school? What was your favorite family vacation when you were a kid? Did you ever get into trouble when you were my age? During the interview, simply let the person you are interviewing tell their stories and encourage them to say more. Don't worry about asking all the questions you prepared. Sometimes you only need one good question to get things going. Let the stories go where they go and just listen and enjoy. And then finally, after the interview, save the audio or video file and share it with other family members. If you are especially tech savvy or have someone in your family who can help you, you may want to use your interview for a multimedia project or a family documentary that includes some old photos. On our blog resources page, we've shared a documentary made over 30 years ago that includes interviews with people who worked at the inn, some of whom are no longer with us. If you want to get an idea for a documentary that incorporates oral history, it's a good one to watch. And don't forget to show the finished project to your family. It's a great thing to watch together one night. You can also share your interview, an edited project, or something about the experience with us here at TWIF. If you do decide to share video or audio files, please make sure you have the permission of the person you interviewed. Now is the perfect time to learn more about members of your family and the stories they have about events they lived through. Become your family's historian by recording these stories and preserving them for future generations.